Number one, we want to figure out what this simplifies to. Now, remember, I to the first is just I, which represents the square root of a -1. That's what I is. When I have an I squared, well, I squared is a square root of -1 times square root of -1, which gives us -1. I to the third, great, changing colors on me. I to the third is going to be a negative I, because it's a -1 times -1 times -1. These give us -1, and then that's just an I. That's how we get negative I. And then I to the fourth is simply a 1, because it's a -1 times -1, so it gives us 1. So all we have to do is figure out how many sets of 4 are in 213, because every 4 sets of I's is equal to 1. Every 4 of them is going to equal 1. So how many 4s are in 213? Now, I could do 4 into 213, or if you just grab the calculator and do 213 divided by 4, okay, and if we do that, type it in, it gives you 53.25. This tells me, think, that represents a quarter, 1/4. That means there was 1 left over. If you get 0.25, 1's left over. If you get 0.50 cents, that's like 50 cents. That's 2 left over, because that's like 2 quarters. The other option, 0.75, that's 3 quarters. If you don't have any left over, then you know it's a perfect set of 4s and it's worth 1. So here we know there's 1/4 left over. In other words, if we do all this out, there's going to be a single 1 I left over. So this answer is simply equal to I. Every answer for these is either going to be I, -1, negative I, or +1. So let's look at the next one. It's 464 of them. So boom, 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 boom. When we do 464 and figure out how many sets we have up here of these 4s, when I do 464 divided by that's easily 116, there's no remainder. That means it was a perfect 116 of them. Well, each one of these was worth 1. So this final answer is simply 1. I to the 464th power is equal to 1. If I do to the 225th, okay, well, every 4 I's is going to be worth 1. How many 4s do I have in there? Well, let's figure it out. 225 divided by 4. Grab your calculator and do 225 divided by 4. You get 56.25. So how many were left over? Well, what is that? That's 1/4. So 1 was left over. So this is going to be equal to a single I. Number 4, do 343 divided by 4. See how many times it goes in? It goes in 85.75. 0.75. That means how many quarters is 75 cents? That's 3 quarters. That means we had a remainder of 3. When we did all this and we had set of 4, set of 4, set of 4, 85 sets of 4, we then had 3 I's left over. Well, 3 I's, as we know, represents a negative I is what we said it was worth. 114. 114 divided by 4. What is 114 divided by 4? It's 28.5, I think. Yep, 28.5. What does that represent? That's the same as like 50 cents. That's 2 quarters. So in other words, we had 2 I's left over. 2 I's. What's an I times an I? That's a -1. And the final one, I to the 20th. Well, we can see 4 I's, 4 I's, 4 I's, 4 I's, 4 I's, because 20 divides by 4 perfectly 5. None left over. Each one of these is worth 1. What's 1 times itself? 5 times 1. So that's the answer. I to the 20th is equal to 1.